All right, young scholars, this is the review of Dewey Dell on page 39, her second section. This is just after the death of Addie. And I've attempted again to organize some elements of it in different colors with color coding, but these things will blend into each other and it won't be perfectly clear. So the yellow is sort of his what's on her mind on sort of the surface of it. He could do so much for me if he just would. This is also a refrain that we saw predicted or described by Darl in the italics section when he describes the death of Addie. He could do everything for me. As we said, she's looking at a doctor, and in some ideal world, she could ask him for help, mainly terminating the pregnancy, which is a big problem for a poor sharecropper's daughter in the very Christian South. All right, and then it's then this other thought, which also recurs. It's like everything in the world for me is inside a tub full of guts, so that you wonder how there can be any room in it for anything else very important. He is a big tub of guts, and I am a little tub of guts, and there is not any room for anything else important in a big tub of guts. How can it be room in a little tub of guts? So the thing that's important in the tub of guts, of course, is the growing baby in her. She doesn't see it as some lovely miracle. It seems invasive, something foreign growing in uh, her guts, her organs. Although she does recognize it as something important, and she's wondering how he can be so big and this can't happen to him. All right, but I know that there is a God. But I know it is there because God gave women a sign when something has happened bad. It's because I am alone. If I could just feel it, it would be different because I would not be alone. But if I were not alone, everybody would know it. So this is sort of a shift. I probably shouldn't have color coded it differently, but the idea that she's all alone in this situation, Leif has abandoned her apparently. Nobody knows except Darl, who she resents for knowing it. Um, and she wouldn't be so alone if she had the baby, but of course, if the baby were a baby, everybody would know it. Now, this is all sort of panicked thinking, and again, it's philosophical thinking about herself physically, not and almost separate from who she is, a thing she can't quite control, her physicality or physical situation. But of course, it's in the language of a farm girl. Uh, and he could do so much for me, and then I would not be alone. Then it could be all right alone. So back to it could be so much for me if he would. All right, um, and then I could be all right alone. She'd be okay being alone if she didn't have this problem. All right, I would let him come in between me and Leif, like Darl came in between me and Leif, and so Leif is alone too. Um, Something along the lines here of Leif being alone too would be he'd be without a child as well. He is Leif and I am Dewey Dell, and when mother died, I had to go beyond and outside of me and Leif and Darl to grieve because he could do so much for me and he don't know it. He don't even know it. So she's saying here that she can't really even focus on the death of her mother. And then I left White the physical action from the back porch. I cannot see the barn. Then the sound of Cash's saw comes from that way. I didn't color code that one as the image that we've been tracking throughout this whole thing. He said, "I worry more than you do," and I said, "You don't know what worry is, so you can't. So I can't worry. I try, but I can't think long enough to worry." Again, she's too focused on her own problems. I light the kitchen lamp. The fish, cut into jagged pieces, bleeds quietly in the pan. I put it into the cupboard quick, listening into the hall, hearing. um, I'm kind of tracking images that cross chapters here. The tub of guts, the fish. Um, Obviously, in the next chapters and in the past, the fish has been something that has obsessed Vardaman. It took her 10 days to die. Maybe she don't know she is, sorry, it is yet. Maybe she won't go until Cash or maybe until Jewel. So that's what she's thinking here. Um, Again, a strange thought that it took her 10 days. Everybody's sort of said that she's laid there for 10 days. I take the dish of greens from the cupboard. Someone says, "Where's Vardaman?" And when Cash comes in, Peabody's team run away. See if you can find Vardaman. The horse will let him catch him. So they think Vardaman could probably get the team of horses. They think got spooked, and they think that Vardaman wouldn't spook the horses any further. And so here again, the physical action. I cannot see the barn. And then into one level of her mind, I said, "I don't know how to worry. I don't know how to cry. I tried, but I can't. After a while, so uh, we're kind of going deeper into her thoughts here. After a while, the sound of the saw comes around, coming dark along the ground in the dusk dark. In the dust dark. Then I can see him going up and down above the plank. You come in to supper, I say. Tell him. Again, I didn't highlight everything. He could do everything for me, and he don't know it. He is guts, and I am guts, and I am Leif's guts. That's it. I don't see why he didn't stay in town. We are country people, not as good as town people. I don't see why he didn't. Then I can see the top of the barn. The cow stands at the foot of the path, lowing. When I turn back, Cash is gone. This idea that they're town people, we're country people, not as good as town people. That's a class thing that again appears in the next chapter with Vardaman, meaning town people, and again also earlier with Cora, who took her cakes to town, or was going to use her eggs to make a cake. Cash is eating. I'm just kind of tracking Cash with the yellow there. Pa helps himself and pushes the dish on, but he's not beginning to eat. His hands are half closed on either side of his plate, his head bowed down a little, his awry hair standing in the lamplight. He looks like right after the maul hits the steer, and it's no longer alive, and don't yet know that it is dead. All right, but Cash is eating. When I'm out of sight of the house, I go fast. The cow lows at the foot of the bluff. The cow lowing is something I probably should have highlighted as an image that kind of connects the two chapters. She talks to the cow. She doesn't have time for it. Again, the cow is sort of in a similar state as her. I think cows have to be pregnant to lactate. I'm not sure. No, I guess they don't. Some kid researched that once. I don't remember. The cow in silhouette against the door nuzzles at the silhouette of the bucket, moaning. Then I pass the stall, so that's the key kind of physical action. I've almost passed it. I listen to it saying for a long time before it can say the word, and the listening part is afraid that there may not be time to say it. I feel my body, my bones and flesh beginning to part and open upon the alone, and the process of coming on alone is terrible. Leif, 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 Leif. So the one in quotes, she actually says this out loud. I lean a little forward. So the blue is to indicate her thoughts. The yellow is what's visual and audio, what we can see and hear. I lean a little forward, 1 foot advanced with dead walking. I feel the darkness rushing past my breast, past the cow. I begin to rush upon the darkness, but the cow stops me, and the darkness rushes on upon the sweet blast of her moaning breath filled with wooden silence. Vardaman, comes out of the stall. You darn little sneak, you darn little sneak. He does not resist. The last of rushing darkness flees whistling away. What? I ain't done nothing. You darn little sneak. My hands shake him hard. Maybe I couldn't stop them. I didn't know they could shake so hard. They shake both of us, shaking. I never done it, he says. I never touched them. My hand stops shaking him, but I still hold him. What are you doing here? Why didn't you answer when I called you? I ain't doing nothing. You go on to the house and get your supper. He draws back. I hold him. You quit now. You leave me be. What were you doing down here? You didn't come down here to sneak after me. I never, you quit now. I never, you quit now. I didn't even know you was down here. You leave me be. Now, I had mentioned that there's a bit of a comedy here. Vardaman is in the stall, and she has just said Leif's name, and she's been all panicked, and she's suspicious that he heard that, and he thinks that she's suspecting him of chasing away Peabody's horses, his team. All right. And also, she's shaking him so hard that she herself is also shaking. She's so freaked out and full of anxiety. She tells him to go do supper. He killed her, he says. He begins to cry. Hush. She never heard him, and he come and he killed her. Hush. He struggles. I hold him. Hush. He killed her. The cow comes up behind us, moaning. I shake him again. You stop it now, right this minute. You're fixing to make yourself sick, and then you can't go to town. You go on to the house and eat your supper. I don't want no supper. I don't want to go to town. We'll leave you here then. So again, the thing here is he's basically admitting that he blamed Peabody, and she's not paying attention because she's just caught up in her own thing. She ends with this sort of lyrical element at the end of the chapter. The dead air shapes the dead earth in the dead darkness. Further away than seeing shapes the dead earth. It lies dead and warm upon me, touching me naked through my clothes. I said, you don't know what worry is. I don't know what it is. I don't know whether I am worrying or not, whether I can or not. I don't know whether I can cry or not. I don't know whether I have tried to or not. I feel like a wet seed wild in the hot, blind earth. Sounds a little bit like Darl in this particular section. Again, she is panicked and worried and unable to focus on the matters at hand. And then we return to Vardaman, who is processing things again. My failed attempt at breaking this into simple parts. When they get it finished, they're going to put her. Sorry, they're going to put her in it. And then for a long time, I couldn't say it. I saw the dark stand up and go whirling away, and I said, "Are you going to nail her up in it, Cash? Cash? Cash?" I got shut up in the crib. The new door, it was too heavy for me. It went shut. I couldn't breathe because the rat was breathing up all the air. I said, "Are you going to nail it shut, Cash? Nail it? Nail it?" Pa walks around. So before I move on, he is concerned they're going to nail her and put her in it. He's afraid that they're going to put Addie in the coffin because he has this flashback. That's what the green is to when he was a baby. He was in the crib and he couldn't open. He got locked in it. So he has this sort of claustrophobia experience. He also has this other sort of metaphorical thing. I saw the dark stand up and go whirling away. Maybe some element of Addie's spirit or something. But he's not resolved to anything here. He's trying to process. So one thing he's freaked out about is the idea that his mom will be trapped in this coffin. Again, he doesn't understand death. Pa walks around. His shadow walks around over Cash, going up and down above the saw at the bleeding plank. So one way of looking at it is he saw the dark stand up and go away. He's contemplating, sort of like Dewey Dell is, the physical components of a person, Pa walking around, and then the things that are extensions of them, like his shadow, which is obviously attached to him, but not actually him, but not physically him. Dewey Dell was obsessed with her physical elements, her guts. And Vardaman is wondering, because, again, his mother is lying in the bed in the house. He could see her. She has been like that for 10 days, and suddenly there's been this change where she is dead, but there's no significant shift in anything about her. She was laying still for 10 days, and now she's laying still. But something has left and he can't process it. This blue part then, so Pa walks around and he walks around, his shadow walks around. That becomes a refrain. Pa walks around, his shadow does. The saw sounds like it is asleep. That is Cash's saw finally stopping, right? And all this blue stuff is him contemplating something. Dewey Dell said, "We will get some bananas. The train is behind the glass, red on the track. When it runs, the track shines on and off. Pa said flour and sugar and coffee cost so much. Because I am a country boy, because boys in town, bicycles. Why do flour and sugar and coffee cost so much when he is a country boy? Wouldn't you rather have some bananas instead? Bananas are gone, eaten, gone. When it runs on the track, shines again. Why ain't I a town boy, Pa? I said God made me. I did not said to God to made me in the country. If he can make the train, why can't he make them all in the town? Because flour and sugar and coffee. Wouldn't you rather have bananas?" So this is very strange stuff, but if we look at it a little more closely, in town there's a train. It's a real existential question. Why was I born poor? Why was anybody born poor? And the difference here, there's a train track in town behind glass that he would like, but they can't afford it because flour and coffee and sugar cost so much. They can't buy frivolous things like trains. So he's offered bananas instead. But his problem with bananas isn't the value. It's that bananas are gone and eaten. He's having, again, related to the death, a train would be a thing that you would have and it would not go away, even though it has this flashing on and off element on the track. But bananas are an experience. They don't last. And he's wondering what the value in that might be. It was not her. I was there looking. I thought it was her, but it was not her. It was not my mother. She went away when the other one laid down in her bed and drew the quilt up. She went away. So here again, his mother, the context of her has shifted so much that he can't process it. In other words, his mother is the person that walks around, feeds him, tells him what to do. But then there was this person that looked like her, which actually was her, but she laid in the bed and was not behaving like her. So he thinks it's like somebody replaced her. It's almost how you only know someone in context. Somebody once made a joke about when you see a teacher in a supermarket, it's like seeing a poodle on its hind legs. It's just strange because we're not in the context that you know us as. So his mother's context shifted and changed before she died. So he's kind of saying that what was my mother ended or disappeared 10 days ago. We're going to run out of time on this, so I'm going to finish this in a separate video.